Jason&Jabari.
What's up, guys? This is Jason from the Jason and Jabari Gaming, and today I will be discussing the BattleGrounds upcoming season, the victory track weeks 1 and 2, and weeks 3 and 4. On call with me, I have none other than Truth Comics and AFO. I will link both of their channels at the end of this video in the description. And yeah, man, we're gonna tell you guys what we think about who's gonna be useful, who's gonna be good, who's kind of gonna be some sneak attackers or defenders, and we're gonna do the whole nine for you guys. So without further ado, what's up, guys?
Hey, good day. How you guys doing?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
All right,
Good
so
afternoon.
if you want to let us know the victory track nodes and the GC nodes truth, and then we can kind of have our discussion as usual. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jay. It's a big season, of course. Season 31 being the next one for the Brawl, so you know at least the very top, there's going to be a lot of push down the stretch. And it looks like they've given us a node set that actually will kind of be counter to last season, where there's a little more engagement, a little less punishing, a little more fun. But first things first, in the victory track, we've got the Invisible Woman's Finesse. A little more involved in the meta than I thought it would be, but dodging back gives you the untouchable passive, which will allow your opponent to miss. It's a half-second long. Outside of that, we've got Steady As She Goes, which means every time you block an attack, the defender will get an inexorable passive where you can't push them backwards unless it's with a special. And it will also increase their combat power rate by 25%. Along with that's a power snack. Every 7 seconds, a buff will get nullified. That's a quarter of a bar of power, 25%. The defenders are more aggressive, and of course, you have the typical Dauntless with the Spirit Gauge. So typical BG's meta, typical power gain meta. And for the GC, just to specify a little differently, the Inexorable will be a 50% passive, meaning it will increase their combat power rate by 50%. The power snack will also be 50% of a bar of power, and they'll have a chance to gain a placebo buff at 40% every time you hit them. So based on what I'm looking at, it's looking to me like a typical power gain meta. What are you thinking, AFO?
I am thinking it's going to be power gain meta, and so it's unique in that Power Snack has a way of ramping some champs, and also has a way of being able to be avoided by some champs. So I'm excited for this meta. I've been testing it in the off season. Got all my science champs in there, and trying to see what I can get through with my cosmic champs. Right. So the two biggest worries in this meta for me are going to be gaining buffs when you don't want to, when you didn't mean to, or a buff you're relying on that gets eaten by Power Snack. And in those matchups where you're trying to push the gas pedal to the metal, getting that one trigger of Power Snack that pushes them red when you were hoping to finish out the fight. Those are probably the biggest two things you want to watch out for. But overall, I think the meta is going to be a fun one, and I'm excited for the weeks 1 and 2, both versions of it, the victory track and the GC week 1-2.
That sounds like exactly what I expected you to say as someone who enjoys suffering with all of us together.
Oh, he relishes in people suffering. Oh my goodness. What champs are you guys thinking that would be useful on attack and or defense for the victory track? And then I guess we can transition into weeks 1 and 2.
Oh, perfect. So I'll go into some of I have some kind of mini notes here as always. So I'll go into some of the champs. So first of all, I think the majority of the science class is going to be pretty usable here. So this is like your Photon, Spider Woman, Silk, Nefaria. Those champs are going to be very good. There's two that I want to highlight though that I think are going to be extremely good. Two and an honorable mention, and that's one I've been using a lot, which is Overseer. Overseer is Nullify Immune, and not just Nullify Immune, but when a Nullify tries to trigger on him, it gives him one of his gamma radiation passives, which is basically how you ramp him to 6 of those. So you can get to 6 of those pretty quickly in the fight just by dexing and punishing. A quick note on that is that you get 1 charge when you trigger the dexterity precision and another charge when you consume it. Because Power Snack is trying to get that buff and it can't. So you get to 6 basically, very early in the fight, throw your SP2, and then have fun. The other one that's very interesting as well is Count Nefaria. That little burst of power is going to give him some extra charges, and basically it works kind of like how Conflictor works, and it'll actually be better for him in GC when you gain more power because he'll get another possibly another plasma buildup. And an honorable mention in the science class is some people do have a 7-star Spider-Man 2099. And if there's ever a time to get him out and use him in Battlegrounds, if you have him at rank 3 or higher, now is the time when there's a node where you need to avoid gaining too many buffs. He's completely buff immune and can do some pretty decent damage, can handle a lot of mystics, etc. He's not going to be the fastest, but he's very good. Also, some others that I've been testing. I've been testing Gallon since he's Nullify immune. And I do have my Razzle Dazzle in the deck. For the same reason, because she does handle these node sets very well, and there's nothing that's capping damage in this meta. So your damage champs are still going to be able to do damage, and you just have to work around the power gain of the node. Some champs that are interesting like that you used to use on attack that you might have to double check are champs like Serpent. He's become a very popular attacker recently. And unfortunately, like his Fury at the start gets eaten by Power Snack, and that does kind of change. If you're relying on your True Focus buff, to stop evade or miss, you're gonna need to make sure that doesn't get eaten. So you need to get to that SP1 and throw it before the Power Snack comes back around. So there's just with the Cosmic Champs that we love to use, there can be some slight other nuance with them. So, but the other champs that I like to kind of think about too are some of the champs that I love to use that have not been as viable lately. So a champ like Dust is one of my favorite mutants to use on attack. She's back to being basically completely unbridled. You can do all the damage, all the Sandstorm, all the specials, the prowess. The caps are off of her. Some of the other metas with protection where you have to use your heavy right away, that's not what you want to do. Where if you throw the second SP1 gets caught in protection again, all of that is not a thing in the first 2 weeks of the victory track. And really the whole meta, as we'll get to the other meta, Dust is, if you like Dust and have a highly ranked Dust, she's back to being annoying on defense and usable on attack again, which makes me happy. I've taken Bullseye, taken Lumatrix, I've taken a number of champs already with my Dust coming back into play. So I got some more, but I'll leave something on the plate for Truth. But yeah, there's some really good and fun. It's a wide open meta to me, and you just kind of go and use your best champions and try to not get SP3.
Hey, that sounds about right. First and foremost, want to thank you so much for laying up that wonderful spike for us on knowing to ban AFO's Dust, ladies and gentlemen. When you match this man in the circuit, when he's trying to take your points, you get rid of that Dust and don't let him run wild with her for the next 4 weeks. Lots of good points. Lots of good points on kind of the meta being prepared for the power gain, ways to work around it. Love the Overseer shout out. I don't run him myself, but him getting double ramped, the double dex thing is a good call for people, right? Because they forget that it can, if they don't get rid of it before the power snack cools down, then you'll trigger it again once you hit them. And it's extra power that's going to generate some more issue. So me, yeah, I've been looking at that. I think like the way I kind of view it when we're looking at buffs and timing and stuff like that is, if a champ gets lots of buffs, so your Juggernaut, like Juggernaut's just fine. We've seen it historically with Hulkling also, where he's just fine. You get so many buffs that you kind of just overcome the node and you play pretty normal. I think to some extent Crossbones is going to be like that. So all of those guys are kind of in play as per usual. When it's more of the intermittent stuff where you need something specific, it's a little more difficult. To your point about Serpent, which I think was also a good shout. If you're depending on that true focus, if you're depending on some people were talking about Cyclops for the weeks 3 and 4 meta. If you're depending on that true focus to be there, it's going to be a lot more tricky to deal with. I like the power control, right? The most obvious you get to is buff immunity. You talked about the science class, and most of that's there, but you get Chavez, right? Every time there's a conflictor, any type of power gain stuff, some Chavez sounds great. I'm obviously running her in the deck, and 51K'd a Deathless Thanos the other day. Your champs that don't get buffs naturally, right? So you mentioned Silk earlier, but for me, that's like a Shuri. I love a good Shuri. It's always fun to play with her. Um, Outside of that, Nullify immunity. You mentioned Dazzler. I've been rocking White Tiger myself, since she can just kind of build her Furies up. She's got a power steal built in. Because of the way the node's built, it actually kind of plays to your intercepts, and because the inexorable stops you from pushing them back on basics but not specials, and she power steals, she can actually control the spacing quite a bit more than a lot of champs can. To the note of champs that have been less useful or that you want to keep an eyeball out when you play them, I think Okoye, because she starts with all of her buffs at one time, she's going to trigger it off the bat. I don't play her enough to know how much that's going to affect her, so I'm looking forward to J-Will's input on that. But not having any of your precisions to start is interesting. You got to remember that Red Skull is immune to champs nullification, but not node nullification. So his buffs are going to get eaten to start and throughout the fight as you're doing that on offense. Champs like Guardian, right? You're not going to start with your armor ups, etc. But then on defense, right? So that means anytime there's power gain and you can't push people back, etc., the champs on defense are going to be more annoying. And the interesting thing about this meta, or maybe it's not that interesting, is that all of your typical defenders are just more annoying. Like, there are definitely other people that get brought into consideration, but it generally is just going to make your bullseye, your Yelena, where you have to dex a bunch of specials and stuff. Your Serpents, Luma, Arcade, Zola, even someone like Havoc, right? When armor ups are getting eaten, and you can't necessarily just parry him all the time and hit him at will, and you're trying to manage which specials he throws. All of these champs are basically going to get more annoying. So, yeah, I know that AFO's looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be prepared to eat special 3 meta, but it's pretty open. It's
Yep.
pretty open meta, I think. With the one exception being those champs that kind of rely on those very intermittent buffs. If your champs either don't have buffs, don't need the buffs, or get a lot of buffs, they're going to be doing just fine. And I suppose my honorable mention or shout out, the last one I'll bring up, of course, we can't forget the man in the science class who just handles power gain so well, Luke Cage. It's a Luke
Daddy
Cage meta,
Luke.
gentlemen.
Papa
Big
Luke.
Luke,
Yeah.
let's go, baby.
Papa
Let's
Luke.
go. Papa Luke.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's great, Truth. I wanted to throw some more champs out there for people to think about. That you gave me some good ideas. You talk about champs that rely on a buff here or there, and I think the tech class has a number of champs like that. You mentioned Guardian and his armor up buff. A lot of Guardian's utility comes from that buff being active. And if you get in some weird loop where it gets eaten and then it gets eaten again or something like that, you could be in some trouble. Um, Warlock also likes his armor up buff to be active, and so you do have to kind of keep an eye on that when you're playing with him. And then Future Ant-Man gets enough of his where it seems to not matter. But yeah, if you're trying to fight some annoying mutants with these tech champs, you got to keep an eye on if your champ is relying on having the armor up buff active. So that's something to think about. Also, I would say out there's a couple of other science champions. So I have to give a big talk about what's been going on with Titania. This would be a Titania meta, given how she used to function before they updated to try and fix some of the locking that was happening. And so, but now I've been testing Titania a good bit, trying to see if I can still use her in a power snack meta. And I haven't had that much success. You can still get your opponents down, but I haven't been able to go to my SP3. I've been doing SP3, double haymaker with the half, with the interrupted heavy. And I've still been getting SP3'd. I've had the champs try to rush out of the corner at me.
Mhm.
I've had them try to heavy me.
Mhm.
Um, so you can still use her, but I think you'll have to consider the risk of um, SP3 when they have an SP3. I think you'll have to consider. I had Onslaught throw his SP2 into my double haymaker, and I took a bunch of degen damage after it wore off. Um, yeah, so she should be available, but it's different now. You have to use your SP2 if you really are stuck in that position, or just risk it. And hopefully they don't, but I don't know how good that is. The other science champ is Silk. And the people are saying, oh, Silk is not as good anymore because you can't Silk lock. But there was a time when no one Silk locked, when you just played Silk as a good champion.
Mhm.
And for this meta, she is, like I said about damage, all the damage capping is removed now. So she's back to, I did an Enchantress the other day, rank 4, SP2, and then she was at 20%. I went in for the SP1 and killed, right? So Silk is back as well, available if you're willing to not try to Silk lock anymore and actually play the champ normally. Could be, fun times. So, no, I think, like I said, like Truth said, it's an open meta, but there's going to be some little pitfalls there. You got to try and avoid getting trapped by, you're drafting for power snack, and then you don't draft into a counter, or you have to kind of keep, or a domino counter. Some of those classic defenders that maybe we don't think are as strong anymore. If you're caught, looking in one direction in your draft, those guys can kind of creep up behind you. One more that I'll throw in before I pass it back that has been doing some fun work for me is Ebony Maw. Basically, if you trigger Power Snack, you take degen.
Oh, what
Like,
a monster.
Mm,
so
mm.
so he's just an automatic instant. No, you're not getting a full yellow bar unless you're buff immune against him. So it's a little cheap, I know, but I have a natural Sig 140
Yeah.
Ebony Maw.
Whew.
So he will be
Yeah.
floating around terrorizing the battle realm
I mean,
for
mine's
week 1 and 2.
120. Mine's a natural Sig 120, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it for me there. Yeah.
okay. Awesome as always, gentlemen. I think that in the GC meta, which as the
Mm.
placebo, right, which we're getting ready to
Mhm.
segue into, I just want to throw on my
Mhm.
2 cents before you guys continue cooking. I think there is a possibility that my rank 4 Sig 200 High Evolutionary can be utilized on attack.
Hmm.
I do think that's a possibility as an option now because he has those severe withers and everything like that, so he could keep everything in check.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think
Hmm.
this power snack, SP3 Fiesta potentially, I think it slows the scores down. It lowers them and
Mhm.
it slows the pace of the fight sometimes. So I think
Hmm.
he might be prime time to be utilized on attack a little bit more than what people think, especially if you need an option. I'm not saying he's a great option, but I am saying I think he will be a option. If that makes any sense. And again, like you guys said on the science class in general, obviously, another one that's a champion that's relevant right now is to consider Mr. Fantastic.
Mm.
Obviously, he's the
Mhm.
chase champion that everybody is trying to get. I know some people like myself do have him awakened, and with the debuffs, he can definitely keep everything in check for you guys. He's a little bit slower, just like High Evolutionary, but I don't think you'll run the risk of getting SP3 because they have a lot of control over the fight with their debuffs. So
Mhm.
those are a couple to think about. Obviously, there's your typical Voids, who's a great dual threat. Um,
Mhm.
I would also throw in, you mentioned Titania and her buff immunity. AFO, you also mentioned Spider-Man 2099 and his buff immunity. I did not hear it. You might have said it, but I might have missed it. I think Red Guardian fits into that category as well.
Mm,
With
very
the
strong. Yeah.
yeah, with the buff immunity and how you play his play style, I think he would be one of your faster science options, given the matchup works right. So I think in those aspects, that's something to look out for. Also within the mutant class, if it is going to be the SP3 Fest, I think we might see a bit of a resurgence in Iceman to be used as a
Yeah.
dual threat, because he's going to cap that damage at 5%. And we all know that with today's AI, it's so unpredictable and so bizarre that it could literally just seem like it's going to make you eat that SP3 no matter what. And I think we're right for
Mm,
feeling that way sometimes. So I think we'll see a
mhm,
resurgence in Iceman as a dual threat just in case we have a tough matchup and we know we're going to eat a couple special threes in the GC, of course. I think the victory track's a little bit more free, like you guys said,
Yeah.
so you can just pretty much do whatever you want there. But when you get to the GC, it probably is going to matter a lot more. But that's pretty much all I'm going to say at this point. I'm going to let Truth take back over because I know he's about to cook on the weeks 1 and 2.
No, I think those were very good points. Red Guardian was definitely on my list, and I think we can kind of move into the GC now. Yeah, it's a good point. So your power gains are both going to be doubled, right? So I think that's really where you got to take a step back and look more at those intermittent buff champs and or the big buff champs, your juggernauts, etc. How well are they going to work? Hopefully pretty well. Jugs at least gets that extra power gain to push people back, but that then having the placebos added on yourself means, AFO was talking about Silk's pseudo buff immunity is not going to be in play as much anymore, right? She's going to have to deal with
mhm,
triggering the power snack. Same with someone like Shuri, etc. Um, a couple of champs that I have on here as well. I was thinking about power control, and so I put Future Ant-Man on here. Even though he's going to trigger the conflictor, you can still play him in a way where you just don't let your opponent throw specials and can nuke them down. I think that he's still going to work when it comes to that. And then, of course, one that's close to my heart, and we are going to have the new champs that come out next week when we hit the Crucible. Vision, the Nullify Immune Tech Champion, who also can get free openings, I
mm,
think is going to be well in play when we see her hit for the back end of weeks 1 and 2.
yeah. Wow. Okay, yeah, and these are all good too. I agree with those. I think that the placebo adds another layer that will make it more difficult. I did want to put a little public service announcement out there. There is the Saga node as well, which is bugged in the off season. And I don't know how well they'll fix it because well, it's MCLC. But it's very interesting to note that if you have that little 4 next to your name, you should be a Saga boost. And there's a few others too if you filter by Saga attackers. But they have the node where you get those cruelty passives when you trigger a miss, when you dodge back. And the cruelty passives are pretty potent. It's 500 per cruelty. You can get up to a 2500 critical damage increase, which is very large. And then at 5, you also get another 2000 critical rating. So basically, the way it works is if you dex a bunch of attacks, you're at 5 cruelties, you're going to pretty much be critting a lot, and they're going to crit harder. So someone like High Evolutionary, who is a Saga champion, if you end up having to use him on attack, he is in weeks 1 and 2. He is a little bit ramped from the node to get bigger hits from his kit. This would be all your if you have any Saga attackers that are maybe they don't hit as hard, they'll hit harder for 2 weeks. And so you should kind of think about that too when you're choosing your champs. I mean, the joke about me running around with the Invisible Woman, well, she's hitting harder than she ever has. And my joke is that they need to just add this whole thing to her kit and buffer. But the funny thing is just that, like, yeah, keeping in mind who has what and what they're able to do for you, and what they can't do is always going to be helpful in these matches in the first 2 weeks.
Ooh, yeah. That's a great shout. And I'm just gonna leave you guys with a pro tip and a little secret. If you guys actually want to beat AFO, I know that Truth told you guys to go ahead and ban his dust. I'm gonna tell you to just lay down. Just listen to me, guys. Just lay down Toad when he has Overseer in the GGs. Okay, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there. Back to our regular scheduled program. Go ahead, Truth.
That's a throwback of throwbacks right there.
Oh
Oh
No
my.
kidding,
yeah.
man.
Hey, if
Going
you
back,
know, you
imagine the
know.
last time you ran code in your BG's deck.
Hey, if you know,
Yeah.
you know. That's all I'm saying. If you know, you know.
I don't even know that I've heard you talk about 6 stars in 2025, Jay.
Oh
So
my
you're
God, this.
definitely throwing back.
Listen, I
Yeah.
know what works against AFO, and I'm telling you, trust me, lay down a toad when he has his overseers and say GG's, walk away. It's over.
I don't, I don't know if that's a winning strategy in 2025. You might regret that, but you could try.
Good
Yeah, well,
times.
wrapping up weeks 1 and 2, I mean, I got a couple
Yeah.
more, thoughts in mind. I think, you mentioned Spider-Woman. I know that she's overshadowing our good old boy Piggy, but he's always been great in power game metas, right? You're putting more
Hmm.
stings on, you're baiting more specials, it's popping off quicker.
Hmm.
Another approach you can take with this too, because of the inexorable, etc., is what's been now labeled hit minimization, right? So someone like Sinister is going to do really well. Of course, your Starkey, yeah, you're going to trigger the initial conflictor, but you're going to get ramped to 10, and then you're basically just trying to nuke in as few hits as possible. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been through power game metas before. I know it's been a few months, maybe since we've had our last one, at least that I can note in my head, because I haven't been taking it too seriously when they show up. But you kind of know what you're doing. If you have questions for us, you can always ping us, and we're willing to give you some examples. But go enjoy the power gain and suffering.
That was very encouraging word. Oh man. All right.
Did you have any last thoughts on it, AFO, for this meta, or are you
No,
ready to go into 3 and 4?
yeah, I think we've hit it as hard as we're gonna hit it.
Whoa!
If you can't
pause on that
survive,
one, buddy.
if you can't really survive the weeks 1 and 2, try to get what you can get from either reaching the GC or your 100 points as much as you can, and then kind of lay low. Don't beat yourself into oblivion. Trying this meta, if it seems too penalizing, then lay low.
I couldn't agree with that more, because if you feel like the metas have been penalizing or punishing, and I'm sure many of you do, weeks 3 and 4 don't have that same weight, yet may be just as terrible. Weeks 3 and 4, Foresight. When the attacker performs an intercept, gain 200% attack for 5 seconds. Fight or flight, every 12 seconds, the defender is going to gain an unstoppable for 4 seconds, but if you're far away, you'll gain the unstoppable instead. And then it's got Astral Sense. When the defender would be struck by a basic attack while stunned, there's a 100% chance to purify the stun and evade the attack. Then all the rest of the shenanigans. And from my perspective, I'm really looking forward to this meta. The only reason I think someone's going to think it's going to be awful is because there are a lot of people out there with that AFO mindset of suffering. And in this meta, when we're just banging out 51, 52 Ks, some people get frustrated with that. I, for one, am very much looking forward to it. What do you guys think?
Oh, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Because it puts everyone basically essentially on an even playing field, no matter the size of your roster. So obviously I have a biased opinion, right? Let me lose to an ascended 6-star Leondu, right? We're gonna have an issue with that. I take issue with being a highlight reel, okay? I take issue with being a highlight reel, is all I'm saying. All right. So
yeah, I mean, was that all you had to say right there, Jay? Will, till we come back, or
that was all I had to say, honestly. That was
okay?
it.
So I'll give some thoughts on the meta. I think that Truth and I did a couple of friendlies the other day. Just reminded me how I feel about metas where you're fast but not fast enough. It's just not my favorite type of thing, but I'm gonna do it because I like Battlegrounds. But I'll say this: champions that have access to intercepts or able to intercept that you feel comfortable intercepting are going to do great. You have to find the balance between forcing an intercept and landing an intercept. The note doesn't say if you force an intercept, you get a Fury. It's if you land one. So you have to get it within the course of the fight. It almost feels like sometimes the AI can tell that you're pressing for an intercept, and it feels like a bad place to be when that happens. Some champs, you also have to remember that if you parry, that they will gain that evade charge. So sometimes what happens is after you land the intercept into a combo, your next move is to parry and land another combo. And that chain of events can get you comboed if you're not, if you're not watching the node. So champs that do have access to evade counters, like your serpents, like I've been testing my ghost, trying to figure out what I want to do with that. And other champions that I mean, I don't have the whole list of evade countering champions, but a champ like Okoye, right? When she parries, you get your ensnare up, and then you're good to go. Not when she parries, when she dashes back, etc. Or I think it's triggers dex is the proper terminology. But point being, you want to get your ensnare up and then bypass evade. And then the other part of it is the fight or flight node is there to help you get an intercept. If you get the unstoppable on you, you can use it as a counter punch and get a free fury. Just holding your block and waiting for the dash in like you do with Deathless Thanos. So yeah, these are things just to think about and how you want to do it. But I'm the metas where they basically everyone is fast. I mean, I did a fight versus truth, and then I was done fast, and he was just done faster, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember these. I remember these types of nodes here where everything is fast. So if that's not your type of thing, just keep that in mind. But yeah.
I will say
perfectly said.
Oh, I'm sorry, Truth. I didn't realize you're about to
No,
go.
no, go. No. I know I'm good. I think it's well said.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, guys, it's a no holds bar if we're just being blatantly honest. So you really can just make a deck of 30 decently well crafted champions, and they're just probably going to finish within 45 seconds tops if you play it accurately, which is what Truth told you how to play it accurately. Use the unstoppable to your advantage, and then you're going to get your intercepts, right? Champions that I think will be useful with the parry method um is probably Cyclops. I think we're going to see a surgence in Cyclops uses for this meta. He caters to it very, very well with his kit, which is honestly probably one of the first times that I'm saying Cyclops will probably be around a lot because I don't remember another meta where he really was dominant. But I think in this meta, if you're not comfortable with not parrying and stuff, Cyclops is definitely one of the go-to and just get you your 2 bars of power. You know what I'm saying? You don't even need your 20 plus charges to do the SP3 loop. You just when you get to your SP2 and intercept with it, they're probably already dead. And then you'll have another bar of power to finish them off. If not, I think Lumitrix fans are going to love this meta too, with how he functions. AFO, you're welcome. Since you didn't mention your boy,
Thank you, sir.
I figured you would. Juggernaut is probably going to be one of the most deadly attackers in this meta, which is why I took mine to rank 4. You're welcome, everybody, if you suffered my wrath. Deathless Thanos was mentioned, and he is going to be a hard ban for me personally. But if you're running Deathless Thanos, enjoy him because he's going to be even better, which I thought was impossible, but it's not. um Other champions that just basically give you easy access. I think Killmonger will be a great dual threat. Also a forgotten champion that we might see his popularity come back up for this meta, just how he functions. And he is a dual threat, if you will. I say that in quotations because no one really is going to survive for very long, but he has the potential to be a dual threat, I guess, is a more accurate statement. Spider Woman also has the ensnare, just like Okoye. So once she gets her ensnare up, you can start parrying if you would like. Dark Phoenix is going to be great, right? Because she gets her own unstoppable buff after her SP1. And when you throw those off in the beginning of the fight, the unstoppable is longer. So therefore, you can get your hits in faster, which grants you the foresight, 200% increase, which means you can nuke the fight way faster. Um, Bullseye is definitely going to shine in this
Hey,
meta.
there he is. Yep.
He's gonna be great this meta. Count Nefaria has his own built-in counter punch, but you have to like back up. They have to actually dash at you in order to get it. Don't try to parry when they're next to you, otherwise it won't count as an intercept. But if they dash at you and you have that up, it will count as an intercept, and that's a guaranteed free intercept right there. Um, and that's about all that I have. Truth, do you have any more, brother?
Oh, for sure. Well, you definitely hit a lot of what's on my list here, and so kind of with the way you guys were talking about the meta, again, I think it's a fairly open meta. I love what Jay said. It's a leveling meta, right? You're going to be able to punch up very well with lower ranked decks because of the
Mhm.
extra furies. I think AFO had a great point about utilizing the unstoppable to your advantage, getting your free intercept to speed those fights up. And so I've been thinking about this, and I feel like if I wanted to use basketball, the last
Ooh.
few metas were like grind them out, punishing, strategy heavy, just, down in the paint, beating each other down. This meta feels like free flowing street ball. Like you get to go
Mm,
run up and down, take some shots. We're all just out trying to get buckets, right? And
mhm,
so
Mhm.
a lot less strategy required to some extent. So it's going to be more free flowing. And so, yeah, to your point, like there's definitely going to be times you're going to come out of something at 51K and someone's going to have 52K something and you're going to be frustrated. So I guess my message to you is if you enjoy the grindy metas, that I'm sorry that you're not going to enjoy this as much, but if those have been a grind, just understand you're still going to get frustrated when you lose, but enjoy the journey. Like just try to enjoy playing some free flowing battlegrounds for a while until you kind of get yourself into position to lock it down and be competitive. Because these metas don't come around that often, right? It's been a while since we've had a free flowing meta like this, it feels like. And I'm not talking about invade either. That's a little bit of a different ball of wax. So I see it as open. Lots of attackers are going to work. Of course, champs with big base damage who will benefit from the fury. So someone like Hitmonkey, right? Hitmonkey on intercepts is going to be nuts. Champs with
mm,
prowess, right? Prowess gets multiplied when it's on the fury. It benefits that. So a lot of your mutants, if you can get those furies built up, even something as silly as like an OG storm, is
mhm,
absolutely going to be powerful on attack. Quick special damage over time. Deadpool X Force, right? You intercept, throw that special one, your bleeds get that 200% potency fury. You have someone like Kate as we move into the cold snappers, people who will then free you and allow you to parry so you can hit. Kate's going to apply that cold snap, but similar to um, what Jay was talking about with count, where you back off and let them come in. If you back off and let them come in, it counts as an intercept. Same goes for Spider Punk. To his point about Bullseye, same thing. He's got a built-in evade, and these champs are going to just benefit off of those furies and be able to do more damage. One other one I want to note to the cold snap point, you mentioned him earlier, it's going to be an Iceman meta. You get to come out the gate, parry and go into it, work up your intercepts. I think Iceman is going to make a nice dual threat return for this specific meta because it's going to boost his damage to a point where he's very usable on attack. Um, Also noting champs that are in that pool that's yet to come out, Cole Obsidian. He's obnoxious on damage, and we know that, but he is going to start his battlegrounds fights with a true accuracy, meaning you'll be able to parry and heavy out the gate and get your damage up pretty normally. And then you add an intercept into that, and we're talking about some destructive stuff. But all of that said, we've talked about the attack. But that means that where we really need to focus in and what's really going to differentiate people is how you craft your defense and how you draft and place those defenders. And so you're looking for as much stall as you can get. Anyone that can buy you some guaranteed time is going to be nice. Anyone that can give you some damage back is going to be nice. And champs that want to be parried for you to hit them, they kind of fall into that stalling category, are going to be nice. So some examples of that would be someone like a Kindred, right? He's going to buy you some extra seconds at the end. Destroyer doesn't allow you to intercept easily unless you're using one of those other champs that allow you to kind of get that intercept on the dash. Electro, guaranteed damage back unless they have non-contact. Modoc's been buffed now. He's got a bunch of auto block stuff built in. One other one I'll note before I turn it over, because again, I want to leave some on the plate, as was said earlier. Long shot. All right. Not only is long shot like the foresight from an attack perspective on those special one spams, but he'll nullify the buffs. So you either got to let him go unstoppable on a high sig long shot, or you got to take the risk that he's going to nullify yours and go unstoppable anyway and gain power. So there are definitely some defenders out there where if they're looking to buy you seconds with damage caps and safeguards and whatever else, this is the time to think that through and put them in the deck.
Yeah, those are some good ones, man. Some really good ones. I'll hop right in here with the defenders and attackers too for the week 3 and week 4. And you mentioned a couple of them already in different ways, but Iceman also, as he makes his return, you might win a match just because you have more health. If they're both nuking, but they don't have a cold snap immune, and you drop Iceman, yeah, Iceman might get nuked, right? He might get nuked, but they'll take some cold snap damage along the way, and that could be the difference. You mentioned a champ like long shot, so I'm thinking about champs like Domino that have some type of damage back. Champs that gain power. It's hard. Good luck intercepting this AI when they have a bar of power. So Serpent, right? Serpent is going to spend a lot of time with power. And so we know this when we try to use Kushala. We have to be very careful when we go for that light intercept. Also, in general, intercepting Serpent with his staff thingy. Sometimes he just hits you. You go for the light intercept, you get smacked. Right? So any of the champions with AI that make it harder to intercept. So this is, as we all love, our favorite Onslaught AI. Good luck intercepting Onslaught all month, right? That's going to be a bit of an issue. I see him being a powerful defender as always, even though there are plenty of counters for him. I'm trying to think of some other champs. Enchantress. That's a delay champ, a stall champ, right? Yeah, you could get unlucky and your opponent gets 3 knockdown spell, right? That could happen. But even then, can you just parry and knock her down? Not if you don't have an evade counter, right? So she's going to have, some stall capability, some annoying capability. I think of champs like Mr. Sinister. Do you really want to do even bigger crits versus him? Yes, you do if that's all you have. But just that regen on critical hits, you'll need to have that specific non-crit counter ready to go for Sinister, or he's going to be another type of a stall. I also think of champs like Korg. I think Korg is going to be good on defense. When I say good on defense in this meta, I mean hold up longer than a champ not named Korg, right? It's not that. It doesn't mean that Korg is now the best defender in the game. It just means that when you're looking for an extra 5-10 seconds, having to get rid of the rock shield a couple times in a match can be the difference between someone not having to do that on their end. This is champs like Photon, who you're trying to mess around with Pure Light, or I need a hitter block to trigger Pure Light. Oh, Inequity is slowing me down. And those champs that put a lot of debuffs will slow down a champ on an attack if you're running Inequity. That brings in champs like Null. Like my Null, you start with a whole bunch of debuffs on you because he's high sig. That in and of itself just slows them down just enough. Maybe it's 5 seconds. But you're looking for champs. Truth and I talked about this the other day. In a meta like this, where an intercept can give you a fury, and that gets multiplied to your other, mechanics of your champion, a lot of champs are going to go fast. And maybe this is why I struggle in these metas, but it's you going faster or slowing them down to reduce or increase that margin for your chance of victory. So with that, I went defense first. I'll drop some of my highlight attackers that I want to kind of test, and I'm thinking about one of the mutants that Truth didn't say that we talked about is Bishop. Typically in Foresight metas, Bishop becomes very strong because if you intercept with 30 or 35 prowess and drop a SP2, it tends to kill. And if it doesn't kill, the incinerate damage is tied to the damage that the SP2 did. So if you get, 1 or 2 crits in an SP2 for 70, 80k, that incinerate damage is now going to do a lot of damage behind it as well. So I'm looking for some rank 3 bishops to do very well in this meta. Some other ones that are on my mind about Foresight are Jay Will did mention Lumitrix. I think that your Black Panther Civil War is going to be very good this meta as well. I know that he has to try and deal with the parries and that. So there may be some downside there, but I think that there could be a path there. Maybe I'll let Truth talk about that. I think that and then all of your cosmic gods. I heard some people talking about using Cosmic Ghost Rider again. I don't know how that's going to work, but Cosmic Ghost Rider with the Fury could be very big. I think there is a path where you could do like a light ender into a medium ender in that area, and instead of just going for your parry heavy off the bat. I think Medusa is going to be very good this meta, with an intercept, with her armor shatter and her own 6 Furies plus another Fury. I could see her ending things in 1 SP2 and combos hits after. So yeah, I mean, I think there's and also that true true accuracy, or whichever buff it's called that she has, does bypass evade as well. So when she has that up, she has no worries in the node except for the unstoppable. And the last thing is with the unstoppable too, champs that bypass unstoppable, like I don't know, Dust and some other champs. Those champs will also not have to worry about that when they have their mode that bypasses unstoppable. Any champ, if you're really just not looking to worry about it at all, champs like Silk will bypass unstoppable when she has her slow up. And so I can see a scenario where you're intercepting with Silk, you're bypassing evade, you're bypassing unstoppable, you're just going absolutely crazy with your Silk. I'm telling you, I think she's going to make a resurgence, even without her Silk Lock in this month of 2 metas. So yeah. Oh, and my last one. I'm sorry. Deathless Thanos is going to be absolutely amazing in this meta with his free access to intercepts. That actual intercept, putting on that panic debuff that gets rid of the evade. Yeah, he is 200% Fury. Deathless Thanos sounds sickening. I think he's going to be very, very strong. He's already, in my opinion, the strongest champ in Battlegrounds, but both on strongest 2-way in Battlegrounds, and I think he's going to be extremely strong on attack and defense because he's going to have a lot of power, and intercepting with the bar of power is not where you want to be trying to do in this game. So, all right, that's my little spiel.
All right. I think you're right, which is why he's a hard ban for me. I think that's why he's a hard ban. And I don't really have any input really other than what Truth is going to add. The only champion that I thought of at the time that you were talking about it was Shang-Chi. I think Shang-Chi is going to do exactly what you said with his slow. When he applies his slow, it stops the evade. It also stops the unstoppable. And then if you get an intercept with his guaranteed crits on an SP2, we're going to call that GG's. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's a good shout. And again, that's one of the beautiful things about this game, right? Is there's a lot of meta champs, and we didn't even talk about the most meta defender yet that we need to bring up. But you can do a lot with champs that you don't see often, and I think Shang-Chi is a great example because he's more rare in decks. But at the same time, if you're a good Shang-Chi player, you know what you can do with it. Go get your 200% Fury and your guaranteed crits and go roll it out. Yeah, we got to bring up the most meta defender, which of course is going to be Elena. She caps all the damage, and so none of your foresight does you any good. And she's going, therefore, you can't really speed up versus her. And then a lot of her counters want to parry her, so you can hit her out of the stun, and she does a lot of damage to the block if you don't. So I think she's going to be probably the single most common annoying defender that you're going to want to make sure you have a path to deal with. I think Dark Phoenix we mentioned for both offense and defense. I think she's going to be a great dual threat this meta. Again, she's got a safeguard built in. Captain Britain has a safeguard built in. Yeah, there are champs that counter it and will go fast, but it's all down to how you're going to construct your deck and who you're going to ban. Thing, we could see a resurgence of some Thing, right? Anytime you start using Furies against Thing, he starts cutting down your damage more. Kind of annoying. High Evo kind of wants to be parried and wants to be hit out of that, so you got to keep your eyeballs peeled for that. Another good 2-way, anytime you get Foresight and Fight or Flight involved, is Nova. His buffs have extended duration based on his SIG. which means, you want to intercept kind of with him naturally, but the unstoppable is going to last longer when you're using him on attack. He does a ton of burst damage. He has Furies built in too. Like Nova's going to nuke some stuff that people aren't prepared for, and then it lasts longer on defense, right? He's annoying if they don't have good counters. So there's a lot of defensive stuff. There's some other tricks that you can consider putting in depending on how you want to construct things. There's Lady Deathstrike regenerates special damage. Cap Sam builds armors and can auto block specials. There's the ever classic, you can't intercept Rhino, but there's a lot of slow champs in the game these days. The OG Ant-Man stall, and maybe that's a thing that'll work. So we'll see what all that looks like. I'm looking forward to playing it out and kind of seeing how it all takes shape. And then a couple other attackers I want to bring up just at the end of it. Adam Warlock, all right, he gets his free openings going unblockable, and then you kind of want to naturally intercept with his playstyle as well. By the time you build up precisions and your Fury on the special 2, if the AI has cooperated and you float out, you're going to get to that special 2, and it's going to be a done game with the intercept on that. And then one other one that I think a guy who gets forgotten, but this meta will play very well into his play style is Superior Iron Man. If you get a solid run up to your special 2 with Superior Iron Man and you throw that bad boy off post intercept with a lot of buffs, that very likely, even if it doesn't crit, will kill a lot of things in this game. So it's a broad meta. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to grinding a little bit this time.
Okay. Very, very solid analysis, gentlemen, as always. Maybe even we might even see a wild Corvus Glaive out here because with his guaranteed SP2, he might go ahead and rinse somebody. So it's definitely I think it has its pros and cons as every meta often does. So if you think that you want to try to qualify for the brawl, I would say there's probably, especially if you're considered to be an underdog of sorts with your roster, I think there's no greater time than to try in weeks 3 and 4 in all seriousness, because you will be on a greater playing field than you probably ever will be with these type of metas. So best of luck to anybody who is trying for the brawl qualifiers. I know amongst us there might be someone, but that's not for me to tell. I know I personally am not, but I do want to compete against everybody at their best. That is what interests me personally. So even though I am going to find this to be quite annoying and problematic, I am definitely going to be participating and trying to get my usual C5. And yeah, man, I don't have anything else unless you gentlemen do.
No, for me, it's been a great conversation. I'll just scroll through the champs as Truth is talking. With that Corvus Glaive, you definitely want it. I think you're going to want the 7-star at a rank 3 level. Yeah. I've tested the 6-star Ascended, and I know Truth has tested the 7-star rank 2. And it's he just benefits from all the extra stats, right? So he's not going to have charges for the most part. So I mean, unless you want to try and test the evade to try and grab a charge, that may be a path. I haven't tested that, but it's there. But he's going to want the 7-star rank 3, at least I think. But like Jay Will is saying, it's going to be fun because there's going to be a lot of options. People are going to come out of nowhere and they're going to use a champ you weren't thinking, and someone's going to use their Emma Frost and they're going to do a fight in 37 seconds. You're going to be like, wait, what? And that's, those metas can be fun, right? So I'm looking forward to the ride of it. Truth?
Couldn't agree more. I'm in it. I'm looking forward to the ride of it. I wish all of you the absolute best, including you two gentlemen, except when you face me for points. And if you guys didn't remember, just ban AFO's dust. All right, I'm good.
Throw down Toad, baby. Throw down Toad.
Yeah. If you're still using Toad, you probably lost.
But yes, this has been very informative. I do appreciate you gentlemen's time. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys out there. If it has, please consider leaving a like on this video. That does greatly help us out, and let us know your thoughts if we missed somebody, if we're not thinking of somebody. That always helps, not only on the engagement aspect of things, but it does let other people see another option at the very least, right? Please go subscribe to Truth Comics and AFO. Again, I will have their links in the description in this video. And yeah, man. Thank you everyone for watching. And that's all I got. I guess we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.